Hi, we're Kate and Ellie. This fall, it will be 5 years that we've been using our van for a mobile home as we discover fresh ways for living everyday life. Most people would call this van life, but we prefer to call it van living.
Living in a van allows us to save on the ever-increasing costs of housing, utilities, taxes, property upkeep, while also giving us the ability we never had before to live more free, more connected, more in tune with nature and others around us.
But how do we make a conventional grid-tied job fit with our new philosophy of van living, all the while making it feel like an adventure nearly every day?
Because whether it's van life or van living, there can be a lot of challenges that come with this unconventional way of doing life. In this video, we're going to talk about some of those issues, and then show you how we've gone about solving them in a way that works for us, and maybe it gives you something to think about for your own life, in whatever living situation you may be in.
But before we go into solutions, let's identify the problem. The first and biggest issue that anyone living in a van has encountered is storage. Vans don't have a lot of extra room, but being free from the burdens of owning a ton of stuff you don't really need is an amazing feeling. However, being underprepared for the regular necessities of life can be stressful. Let's face it, you can live big in a tiny house, but that tiny house can only stockpile so much food, seasonal clothing, toilet paper, and other gear.
Limited storage capacity means those Instagram pics of being off-grid and pristine mountainous regions or desert for weeks at a time is kind of difficult to achieve when your fridge can only hold 4 days supply of fresh food and produce. You've landed that perfect boondocking site. But wait, as soon as you leave to drive back into the nearest town an hour or so away, you've lost that public spot to another traveler. And wasting time with extra grocery runs doesn't feel like the best use of our recreational time or our gas budget.
Okay, problem number 2. Office space. Running a full-time grid business out of a van can be stressful and inefficient without a proper setup. For 4 years we managed, but it was challenging and we needed to be strategic about when we get our office work done, where we were doing it, and for how long.
We might get set up, the next thing you know, the library is closing, the public Wi-Fi hotspot gets shut down, or we need to pack up and make dinner. We definitely needed a way to get around these barriers that were draining our love for van living.
We didn't want to admit it, but we were struggling in this new life. Something needed to change.
We needed more space to operate. Do we go to a bus? That would take a ton of time and money to build out.
Do we switch to an RV? Most of those can't handle winter.
We love our van Maximus and where he can take us. We love the financial freedom we've gained from van living. We just needed more space. We needed
a VANLIFE expansion pack. Alright, welcome to the VANLIFE expansion pack. It's been a long time coming. We're excited to finally be able to show you what we've been working on the past year and a half. As you can see from the opener video, this is a fairly large trailer here. It's a 16-foot long, plus the V, 8.5 wide, and about 7 feet tall on the interior. This is what we decided to use to build the solutions to the problems we were running into. Whether it was a storage issue, an office issue, a proper space for the tools, this is what we invested our time and money into to solve those problems. Let me show you around. Okay, so the thing that grabs your eyes probably right away here is the desk. This desk we were really looking forward to having in here, and it's very secure. Even though it's on a sit-stand mechanism, it's actually on sliders that are bolted to the frame of the trailer, so the whole thing is very solid. It's not going to go anywhere. And some of you may be wondering, are we really driving around with this big monitor? Yes, we are. There is a protocol for how we strap it and bundle it in and bungee cord it in place into the track, so it'll never fly around anywhere. We've been on some very bumpy roads and it's been totally fine, so you don't need to worry about that aspect, because I know someone out there is going to be wondering. And one of the other great benefits of having an office in a space like this that has a massive back door to it is that This is my office window now, where I get to enjoy the forest or a bush or a lake or wherever we are at that point in time. In this trailer build, we needed to have a permanent workbench, which is so useful when the weather outside is either like raining, snowing, or too hot. And it's great as well because this whole space that we have in here is heated. So we have the S-Bar D2L heater that runs off of the diesel tank that we had installed. Along with that, we have the S-Bar S3 D5 hydronic heater that heats the coolant that is running through the floor hose. Because yes, I put floor heat in my trailer. That's how much I believe in doing it. Now you may be thinking that's overkill, but let me remind you, we live in Canada and it can get really cold. Having a warm space that keeps the tools warm every morning is fantastic. This trailer took about 4 years of thinking about and finally getting around to before we actually had a chance to build it. And in that time I was able to figure out what I don't really need to carry with me for work and the things that I do. And the things that I do need to have with me, we were able to get them stored into the Milwaukee Pack-Out system. And it's a system that's been very efficient to use. There is an upfront financial investment in getting this much of this type of equipment, but it has really paid for itself. And it's given me a lot of time saved that I don't have to spend hauling stuff in and out because it all just clips together in and out on the cart, but everything has its place because the last thing you want to deal with at the end of the day is having a pile of mess left over for you that you're going to have to deal with later. I come in at the end of the day, everything slides in, done. Another great feature about this trailer build is the storage. This is actually an IKEA PAX wardrobe that has been retrofitted to fit the trailer and reinforced to survive a mobile environment. As if you're familiar with these units at all, they actually come with glass panels, and that was just going to be a no-go. We made our own custom panels, and we get a lot of comments about this. This texture here, as you see, is actually cork underlay flooring for hardwood, and we stuck it to a back of something rigid, painted it, so we're really happy with how it turned out. On board inside the wardrobe, we have our Dometic freezer. It has been a game changer to have a freezer that is as large as this one is, a 99-liter capacity. Ellie and I prefer to support local farms and businesses, so when we show up, we'll stock up for a month maybe at a time, and we can actually store it on board versus the limited storage that you have if you just have the freezer in the van. For the rest of the wardrobe, we are splurging on clothing and bulk item storage. For anyone who's ever had to live on the road or be nomadic, having enough space to hold clothing or coats for all seasons can be a big struggle. This is our way around having a storage unit full of clothing bins we have to constantly go back to. Having all of our clothing with us all the time so we can be ready for any occasion in any weather. As you can see, we have a variety of shoes, work clothing, winter clothing, life jackets, plus extra food storage, and even extra fuel for the trailer's heater tanks. We were also really intentional about when we designed this that we wanted to have a wide aisle that was great for storing extra materials for jobs, but we also have a method of storing our bikes for transport on longer trips. And with the layout of the trailer, we can store them in multiple locations depending on what we need to do with the bikes and other storage. One other perk about this space is that it's also 4 feet wide here, and that is wide enough to fit in most ATVs. All the tie downs are there ready to go, whether we need an ATV for work or recreational exploring. Even though this is just a trailer, it's a highly functional unit. It has its own independent power system on it. So on the roof we have 2 panels that are 385 watts, which is giving us a total of 700, whatever that is. We also have a small battery. It was just a budget purchase on this one. It was a 170 amp hour Renogy battery that is keeping the lights going, gives us our AC, and we did a small inverter as well. That's just a simple 800 watt one. You can also see a game changer, a Starlink antenna. So we love our Starlink, but for those who have also had Starlink, there's a realization that it gets to be a bit of a bear to constantly set up and pack up all the time without damaging the equipment. Also, if you're parked in tree cover, it can be an issue that you don't have a clear view of the sky. In developing this trailer, we were able to work with a system that lets it have minimal setup time. The Starlink just stays right in here, and there's a switch to turn it on and off. And then I have a port that's on the roof of the trailer that lets me just drop the antenna in if it's a clear view, plug it in, and we have internet access going there. Or in the scenario, if we're parked under some trees and we don't have a clear view of the sky from there, we placed a side port on the trailer where we can plug in an Ethernet extension cord that reels out to a clearing where the antenna can be mounted on a tripod. It's a super easy way to get that extended out antenna set up and get a clear reception. All right, welcome to the roof deck. This is something that we designed specifically for this trailer to continue to maximize the problem-solving abilities of this build. Problems like needing additional power, not only for the trailer, but also so that we could recharge the batteries with more oomph into the van because we have an AC on it now. We also needed to hide a full-length extension ladder. In addition to those problems, we wanted to have a good spot to hang up a WeBoost antenna and a Starlink antenna, but also have them be safe for transport. As you can see here with the WeBoost antenna, it's just a simple hinging mechanism and it just goes into a stowaway package. One of the things I'm always concerned about when we have a lot of gear on board is that there's plenty of opportunity for things that stick up to get hit by tree branches or low-hanging basketball nets in subdivisions, who knows. My thing is that I always like to have things stowed away as much as possible. Something I was really excited to finally get up here was the Starlink antenna mount. And this is a great spot so when we have a clear sky, there's a clean location that we can put the Starlink. And I made my own kind of adapter there through using some electrical components and bolted it to the frame, and it holds it just perfectly solid. It's not flying out. And this is where we have our second port for mounting the Starlink. So we had one on the side of the trailer mentioned earlier, and this is the upper one. And I like how clean it is because you can barely kind of see any of this stuff from the ground, and even from the sky it looks pretty awesome. Even though we have the Starlink antenna mounted out here and the transmitter for it is inside, it doesn't really transmit that well into the van, and I'd rather keep that whole thing inside. But what we did do is run out an extension for a separate broadcast, an outdoor Wi-Fi antenna. So Ellie, she's in the van during the day, she's doing some office work, she has great Wi-Fi, and it works well for me because if I'm working out on a site, I'm around the trailer, I still have Wi-Fi. I stream a lot of YouTube. I might just be listening to one of your channels. If you are putting a content out, I might be listening to you. This is great. It goes several hundred feet out. It's one of those latest perk things that we've put in that has been really fun to have. Up here, we have our solar panels fixed in place right now, but once the actuators are done, I'll be able to have them tilt. And with the tiltability comes an option to have a whole bunch of storage underneath there. There's probably about 8 inches of height, so it's going to be lots of space for lawn chairs, or I'm probably going to stuff a guitar under there maybe because it's weatherproof. It just gives us a lot more options. This is where we store the extension ladder, and it's kind of my own custom cover. This is actually a 22-foot extension ladder that is hidden into the rack, so you can't see it from the ground at all, and you can barely see it from the air. Also hidden in the ladder rack is a 10-foot storage compartment for extra conduits. Working in the trades, usually we need 10-foot lengths of stuff. And it's not 100% complete yet, as that is van life and van building. I actually will finish it with a mesh going across it and then put in an end cap for it. But you get the general idea. In addition to having the conduit fit in here, this is also where we would store the Starlink tripod for other remote location hookups if we need to get out to the tree line or get above some long grass. That folds up and stores in here. All right, we've covered a lot of stuff so far, but if you're really into this and you want to see a little bit more of the nitty-gritty, I'm gonna leave you with a rapid fire round right now. I've added some useful power management options into this build. With the solar panels on the roof, with a flick of a switch, I can change them over to the charge controller in the van to boost the van's battery bank, which is great now that we have an air conditioner on board. Since the battery in the trailer is rather small, if I need to get additional power, let's say AC from the van, flick of a switch can solve that. Bam! Pulling AC from the van. The heat systems on board run off of a slide-out diesel tank, fillable from the side door. All the cabinets inside have removable panels to allow for easy access for servicing equipment. Highly recommend if you're considering a build. Yes, in case you're wondering, the speakers are bolted down so they won't go anywhere. All the USB receptacles have off switches to not drain power when they're not in use. The interior has a 10-foot pipe rack that can be converted to an extra storage shelf if needed. Hey look, the receptacles move with the desk. Ooh, I have a power accessory drawer for charging all the fun stuff. Yes, I have an acoustic guitar. It's made of carbon fiber, so it is immune from environmental changes. After figuring out how the desk was going to sit and work with some drawers, I was left behind with this weird cubby spot. Great for shoes. Reminds me of my kindergarten days. All 2 years of them. Behind the work shelving is additional long storage, holding mud tracks, a 12x12 pop-up tent, and other electrician-y things. In addition to the battery chargers on the wall, there is this cable that plugs into the rear of this light that doubles as a battery charger. These aluminum strips prevent workbenches from ruining a perfectly good paint job. The rear light on the trailer can be controlled by inside the trailer or by a switch by the driver's seat. The side lights can do that too when I finish wiring them. All of these vertical supports are doubling as ceiling supports since the ceiling was stupid flimsy and I wanted a nice ceiling. Van roofs are way stronger. Lastly, when editing this video, I learned how to fix the weather. Oh, the miracles of technology. Thanks everyone for watching. If you made it this far, you're awesome.